you Session meeting. Again, we apologize for the inconvenience, but we're going to enter council with a closed session today. At the end of this closed session, we'll continue with the scheduled agenda. We are entering into closed session for the purpose of receiving advice from council. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we move into closed session for advice of counsel or attorney-client matters.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Dugan and a second from Mono. Any discussion? I'll roll call. Dugan?
Yes.
Mono?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
And I'm yes. That means we are in closed session and we will return to this work session. Thank you. apologize again for starting with a closed session, but thank you for that time. We'll now proceed with the rest of our work session. Our meetings are public, and you're welcome to join us in person or by watching from the Council's agenda page, Zoom, YouTube, or SLC TV. We hope you'll continue to join us in whichever manner you feel most comfortable. This is a work session meeting during which there is no public comment. Please join us tonight during our 7 p.m. formal meeting to share your comments. We, of course, welcome your feedback anytime by mail to P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84114-5476, by email at council.comments@slc.gov, or via our 24-hour phone comment line 801-535-7654. Comments we receive on agenda topics are shared with council members and posted to our website, slccouncil.com. We'll be moving the items around a bit from our original schedule. The first item on the agenda, which was the informational winter shelter plan update, has been moved. We'll now go to item number 3, the ordinance on the North Point Light Industrial Zoning text amendment follow-up. We'll turn the time over to Nick Tarbett, Council Deputy Director. And I see Nick Norris, Planning Department Director, joining us as well. Oh, and we've got Chrissy Gilmore online as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. This is a follow-up briefing on the proposed zoning for the North Point Small Area Plan. In October of this year, the council had a discussion on potential changes to the 300-foot buffer from the Jordan River standards. That is a request from many of the property owners along the Jordan River, and the council directed staff to go back and work with planning, public utilities, and the attorney's office to see if we could come up with some other options for the council to consider. So after some discussion, there's a proposal that would, Chrissy will go into depth on it, but it would break up the 300-foot buffer into 3 different sections: 0 to 100, 100 to 200, then 200 to 300. The closer to the Jordan River, the more protections, the more limited the uses. So with that, I'll let Chrissy give the information on that, and then we'll just be looking for direction from the council if you're supportive of this proposal.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. So I don't have much more to add than that because it is fairly simple. So the draft that you reviewed in October had the Jordan River buffer broken up into 2 sections. The first 100 feet was the strict no disturbance area. And then the area from 100 feet to 300 feet was a structure limit area, which essentially allowed really no development, no structures, but it would allow things like a patio or fences, but no paving. And then after the direction from the October meeting, we went back and met with public utilities and the attorney's office and so forth, and tried to come to a different proposal that met some of those property owner concerns. And where we ended up in the proposal before you today just adds a third layer to that. So the first 100 feet would stay the same, so no disturbance at all. The second, so 200 feet to 300 feet would be the structure limit area, which is the same that was already proposed, which would have very minimal disturbance allowed. And then the area from 200 feet to 300 feet, so the furthest away from the river, would change to what's called the buffer transition area. And this would allow any uses in the underlying zone, so any uses in that the proposed M1A zone, except for commercial parking lots and stormwater retention or detention. And then they also have to follow the general riparian corridor overlay zone, which would include applying for a riparian permit for extra review. So that really is the basics of it. It just changed from those 2 separations, the 2 zones, to now 3 separated zones.
Thank you, Chrissy. And thank you to the Planning Department and to Nick Tarbett for being so responsive to our many, many questions about this. Council, do you have any questions, comments, concerns? Councilmember Dugan, anything to add?
Yeah, thank you, Christine. I appreciate the discussion here and the 3 zones. And on that, so between 200 and 300 feet, no parking lots. And does that also mean there's no buildings in that area? Is that there's structures can go into that area, but just no parking lots in that area? Is that
right? So this follows the current riparian corridor overlay zone, which has an area C, and so that it would allow structures, it would allow buildings, but because of protecting that riparian corridor. It doesn't allow commercial parking lots or stormwater retention or detention. I asked Public Utilities why that is, why they recommend that, and it's just because they don't want a concentration of, pooling of potentially contaminated water or automobiles.
Okay, great. I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate the update here, and this is good to me, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you. We will now move back to the,
May I just ask, could we just get a straw poll if the council's okay with these? And then we'll bring it back to the council for consideration in January.
I can't call a straw poll, so I'll need someone else to do that, please.
Madam Chair, I move that. Oh, straw poll. Sorry. Not a motion. I would like to have a straw poll to accept the changes from Christie on the North Point riparian corridors or areas.
Show your feelings. It's unanimously an approval. Thank you. All right, we will now move to the second item on our agenda, which is an ordinance for the Jordan River Fair Park District zoning map and text amendment follow-up. I'm going to ask, well, Nick Tarbett, don't go too far. I've got you listed here. Amanda Roman, Senior Planner, Kelsey Lindquist from Planning Management. We've got our friends from LHM. I think I saw Ben Buys here from the UFair District. And then we're going to have Katie Lewis at the table to walk us through this exciting development. All right, Katie, I'll turn the time over to you.
I'll defer to Nick if he has any introductory remarks first.
I just want to take this moment to be excited about having the last briefing next to Katie before she leaves the city.
Sad. Way to set the tone.
I guess just to introduce it, this is the proposed zoning changes that would create the Jordan River Fair Park zoning district, and it includes a development agreement with Larry H. Miller Properties. Katie, I guess the city's been working with LHM for the past few weeks to work out the terms of the development agreement and finalize the zoning, and Katie has an overview of what those proposed changes are.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Katie.
This is our second briefing on the development agreement between Salt Lake City and the Larry H. Miller Group, and I thought that I would just start, for those who didn't hear the first one, just start with a brief overview of why we're here and why we are talking about this in the council's last meeting in December. In the 2024 legislative session, the Utah legislature passed HB 562, which is called the Utah Fair Park Area Investment and Restoration District Act. And we call that the UFair Act. And what it did was create a separate political subdivision and drew a boundary around parts of Salt Lake City that included both state-owned and privately owned property, and made the legislative determination that any growth-related property tax would be reinvested in that district in order to recruit and receive a commitment for a Major League Baseball team and to facilitate the development around that area. So 75% of the growth-related property tax will be invested in that development. And it also required the city to negotiate and execute an agreement with the qualified owner of the private property, which in this case is the Larry H. Miller Group, for the development of that private property. And if Salt Lake City does not execute that agreement by December 31st, 2024 with the Larry H. Miller Group, then the UFair Board, which is the separate political subdivision, has the authority to take the Salt Lake City's land use authority for the private property in that district. So it's very important for Salt Lake City to negotiate this deal, and we are very pleased with the partnership that we have with the Larry H. Miller Group and where we are today, because we've got final terms to share with you today. As a reminder, the law only requires three things in the agreement. First, that there will be an expedited land use review process for all development applications on the private property. Second, that the city will not condition or prohibit a stadium use in that area. And third, that the property owner, the developer, will be vested or frozen in the land use ordinances in effect at the time that the agreement is signed. The city and Larry H. Miller Group have been negotiating a development agreement that has more terms than that. And that's appropriate because it's a 40-year agreement, and it's important for both the city and the developer to have certainty on what will happen in that property. And typically, when a city negotiates a development agreement with a developer, the developer is seeking certainty on the process of how the property will be developed, and also certainty on the land use ordinances the rules that they will be subject to. On the other hand, what's important to the city are the public benefits, the things that the developer will do for the public in exchange for that certainty over the 40-year term. We have a list of the terms, and I will just say that with your permission, Council Chair, at the end of this briefing, we would like to make that document with it's just a list of the terms public. It is the list of final terms, and then we are in the process of finalizing the actual development agreement, which will include these final terms. So I'll just go through the terms, but if you have any questions, please interrupt me, but I'll just start rolling through them. The first is what we talked about. The development agreement does vest the Larry H. Miller Group in the city's land use ordinances for the next 40 years. The next term of importance for you all to know is that the agreement does include an early termination right, only in the instance of if the city financially incentivizes another Major League Baseball team in the first 10 years of the agreement, although there are 2 additional 5-year extension terms if the developer comes to Salt Lake City and says, we just need a little more time, we're very close, we almost have a Major League Baseball team. So the developer does have an early termination right only in that instance. There are no other early termination rights in the agreement. In addition, we and the developer did a great job hearing what Councilmember Wharton and others said about open space and the importance of non-discrimination rules in the open space. The JRF zone requires the developer to dedicate 10% of the property to open space. That's about 9.5 acres. And the developer has agreed that any rules for the open space, whether privately or publicly owned, will prohibit discrimination based on characteristics protected by law, including race, sex, gender identification, sexual orientation, national origin, native language, religion, age, disability, marital status, citizenship, genetic information, pregnancy, or other characteristics. So that's in response to the council's request, and we're delighted that the developer was committed to including that in the agreement. In addition, and this was based on Councilmember Pui's comments that we received in the public briefing, the Larry H. Miller Group has agreed to a home game covenant, which means that they will use commercially reasonable efforts to recruit and obtain a commitment from a Major League Baseball team to play at the stadium at that location. And once they do receive that commitment, the ownership group has committed that that team will play all of its home games, with a few exceptions for international or exhibition games, but all of their home games will be played at the stadium for the next 40 years. In addition, we talked a little bit about how both the city and the developer want certainty related to the development, and that includes roads, sewer, water, and stormwater. So there are provisions in the development agreement that talk about those types of commitments. The developer wants to build a project that's cohesive and includes a lot of different amenities for pedestrians and for bicycle access. And they've committed to submit a project-wide transportation plan to show where those will be, because some of them might not be on the public roads, but they are committing to sidewalks adjacent to all the public roads to ensure that all the roads do have pedestrian access. In addition, we have agreed to a commitment related to sewer and water capacity and also stormwater infrastructure. Finally, consistent with the act, the city has committed to expedited review on all land use applications. In addition, and this is something we talked about in the last public meeting, this project will not be subject to the city's airport overlay zone, but instead, in this agreement, the developer has committed to submit their development plans for any building over 63 feet to the FAA for review, and will work on anything that needs to be done to mitigate or eliminate any of the dangerous conditions that the FAA identifies based on those building heights. Further, while the city's riparian overlay zone will not apply to this project, the city and Larry H. Miller Group have agreed to a riparian corridor review process. So that includes an enhanced table of uses on what can be built from the high water mark of the Jordan River to 25 feet, 50 feet, and 100 feet. And if there is something that the developer would like to do within that 100 feet area that is not allowed by the enhanced table of uses, there's a variance process, because we both have a mutual commitment to activating this site and cleaning up and activating the Jordan River in this area. So there is a variance process if there's some part of the development that is really necessary, and Salt Lake City Public Utilities can work through that variance process. In addition, if that variance process is not sufficient for the developer, they also can request an expedited arbitration process. So there are a couple steps to make sure that the mutual goal of activating the Jordan River corridor is met while also protecting the riparian corridor. A few other terms: the developer will have the right to maintain temporary parking lots for up to 15 years on the property, and that's reasonable for the length of this agreement and the magnitude of the agreement. It was important to the city to not have those temporary lots be covered in grass for water conservation purposes, so that is not in the agreement. In addition, there are various commitments to collaborate to make sure that this project meets our mutual commitment on activation and safety and the open and welcoming for everyone. So that includes the city and Larry H. Miller Group agreed to collaborate on public safety within the district, expanding transit service within the district, facilitating the installation of tunnels or bridges over North Temple, facilitating the city's conveyance of certain properties that the city owns east and adjacent to the property, and also an easement on the trail so that it's a cohesive and well-developed site. Cooperating with the UFair board on if there's a necessity for a crossing on South Temple or over the Jordan River. And ensuring that because there's this mutual commitment to invest in this project, this district, that the city will not create a RDA project area or an additional tax increment collection area within the district. In addition, there is a strong commitment to making sure that the stadium is activated. So the city and the Larry H. Miller Group have agreed to create an annual permitting process for the events that will occur at the stadium during that year, including a process to address noise mitigation, event timing, and allowing fireworks and drone shows and other aerial displays over the stadium. And then finally, there is, of course, a strong mutual commitment to community benefits. So the Larry H. Miller Group has attached a lengthy exhibit to the development agreement listing its objectives and goals for the project and really the community commitment that it's making in this significant project investment. In addition, the developer is committing to specific construction of workforce and family-sized housing. So they're committing to constructing a minimum of 10% of residential units that will be restricted at 80% area median income for a term of 40 years. And also will be committing to construct 20% of the residential units to be family-sized with a mix of a minimum of 2, 3, or more bedroom units, which is fantastic for the city in that area because those two unit types, workforce and family-sized, are really necessary in the city. And that is the end of my presentation of the significant and final terms of the development agreement, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Katie. Council. So I want to go on the record here and say this has been a not traditional way of doing things, dictated mostly by the legislation that came out. And so for any constituent who is watching, I want to reiterate that much like the other process we went through earlier this year, this has been in compliance with the law, and it has been done in good faith, centering the best interest of every Salt Laker possible. The fact that we are doing a rather dry run-through is not reflective of any lack of due diligence. In fact, this has gotten more attention than my biological children for the past 2.5 weeks. So it's not reflective of any lack of due diligence. In fact, it is evidentiary of the tremendous amount of not meeting time that has been spent going over things, fine-tooth combing, passing things back and forth, trying to take another bite of the apple. So I just want to acknowledge that if I were an outsider looking in here trying to get an understanding of what's going on in my city, this might look a little different from what I would expect to see. And much like the other agreement we came to early in the year, big and different does not equate to bad, scary, or wrong. It equates to big and different. And so we are a city in transition. I have to tell you, I don't know of any city that is in better hands than the people who work behind the scenes here, and that is led by our city attorney, Katie Lewis, who has just been unparalleled in her devotion to the big things and the small. But it also extends to Jen Bruno, our council executive director, Nick Tarbett, who's sitting next to Katie, Rachel Otto, who's the mayor's chief of staff, and I think all the electeds would join me in saying if the people whose names our voters don't know weren't here doing the work they didn't see, we wouldn't be able to sit here right now and nod and say thank you for the work that you've done. Even though we will be voting on this, we want constituents to know there are still other bites of the apple and ways to give feedback, and this will be in development, and LHM has committed to maintaining a responsive posture to our constituency. So I want to acknowledge the deviation from standard procedures, but also acknowledge the fidelity with which the work has been done and the centering of the constituency that we were elected to represent and advocate for. That has also been done. Anyone else have any comments to add? All right. Thank you all so much. With that, we are going to move on to item number 4, which is an ordinance for the Economic Development Loan Fund to Frontier Fruit LLC. Austin Kimmel, Council Policy Analyst, will join us at the table, as well as Roberta Reichelt, Business Development Director, and Will Wright, the Project Manager.
All right, thank you, council members. This is an Economic Development Loan Fund, or EDLF loan, to Frontier Fruit LLC. Frontier Fruit is a tap room offering craft beer and spirits. The Loan Fund Committee recommends the council approve a $350,000 loan at a 9.5% fixed rate over 7 years. The loan would help create 19 new jobs in the next year and retain 11 existing ones. It would also help pay for machinery and equipment, furniture and fixtures, leasehold improvements, and contingencies. And reminder that a public hearing is not required for this item, and a vote is scheduled for tonight's formal meeting. And with that, I will turn it over to Economic Development.
Thanks so much, Austin. Great to be with you, council members. You probably saw in the policy report that this is a loan with a similar address as one that you've seen a few months ago. And I think at that time we brought the loan to you. We gave you a little bit of overview about what this entire development might be. And now I just want to go a little bit deeper and tell you what an incredible opportunity we have to really revitalize a part of our 300 West corridor with local small businesses. This particular loan is for a tap room that will be sort of anchor the development along with Shades Brewing. But within this development, we're going to see at least 5 or 6 small businesses, if not more. And so we really like this development and the city's investment in it. And we've been working really closely now with the property owners who are here, who have also put a lot of investment into this property to really make it a dynamic local business hub. And we love that it complements the city's investment in the 300 West corridor. We think this, there's a lot of different kinds of businesses on the 300 West corridor, and one that will bring people that will readily use the different types of alternative transportations available that the city put so much funds into. I think this is just a great win for the ballpark neighborhood and for the city. So I'll let Will go into some details on the project as well.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. Couple things on this project that are really exciting. As Roberta mentioned, we'll highlight the improvements made to 300 West, including bike racks. So we're really going to promote cycling to attend to bring people into the business. In addition, talking to the current business owners, a local camera shop, a local bike shop, and a virtual indie racing establishment, they're very excited about seeing that this location filled with businesses to anchor that location in the and bring folks into the ballpark neighborhood. And with that, happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Councilmember Pui.
Thank you for the work. I don't necessarily have a question regarding this loan in particular. I'm excited about this one to come forward. I have more of a question that may not be able to be answered right now, but related to the EDLF process and the workload. And we, as a council, gave direction as far as ensuring that the process was more accessible and ensuring that there was more of a presence on this program in the city. And I see it, because of you coming here to tell us about this loan, that the program has been successful. There is more applicants, there is more loans in the pipeline, and there is more diversity of businesses in the districts that we want to see them. I'm very thankful for that work. But I also want to make sure that you tell us if you need more help and if you need more hands, ensuring that we have not given you a goal that is almost impossible to completely achieve. So if there is a way for economic development to report as far as like how many you have seen in the jump and the history since we have made the changes, and what do you anticipate, and maybe I'm jumping the line, coming on the budget soon later, but what do you anticipate the workload will be? Because I really want to make sure that we understand that by giving you that extra commitment and direction, that we probably need to support you with more people.
I really appreciate that comment, and it's a perfect question and timing. We brought this to the attention of leadership, and frankly, the mayor's office as well. We're working with them on providing information on sort of the staff level commitment to this program, and happy to share that with you as well. As you guys know, we've been up here a lot, and the applications kind of exploded in 2024, and so we really started to feel the pressure around the summer, and ever since been working to figure out how to like streamline, while also making sure we're accommodating and also making sure there's enough money in the future for this program. So we are collecting all of that information right now. We are working with a bank also to do an analysis of the portfolio, to give us future projections on where we should be, or where we want to be with the program to make sure it's sustainable, because that's the most important to us, that this fund is available in the future. So we are going through all of those analyses right now, and can update you with that. And if there will be a budget request, you will see that. But it really has to be a collaborative effort with our department, mayor's office, and all the other people involved. This is, you guys know, the Economic Development Loan Fund touches our entire department. There's a lot of hands in it, and it impacts a lot of people. And so, yeah, we're putting together the best sort of picture of that process, and happy to share with those results with you when we have them.
Thank you for elevating the Economic Development Department in the last few years to, places I would have not imagined. So thank you.
I appreciate that.
Councilwoman Young?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to echo a lot of those same comments with kind of two quick anecdotes just to reflect. Having had an opportunity to meet with so many of the businesses that you serve, number one, I have never heard anything but incredible praise for the amount of professionalism, but also the amount of humanity that you bring into those conversations in terms of recognizing the potential in a lot of these kind of emerging businesses, and then creating personalized structures for the learning to occur, so that not only are they able to participate and access the city programs, but also that they have a pathway to not continue to rely on those types of funds, but to really be able to stand on their own 2 feet. The other thing that I'll just quickly share that I think is unique about this proposal, but very representative of the work that you do and that I am super grateful for, is that you find businesses that are in areas of the city that we need to invest in. And I am super grateful for that. You are not just picking, out businesses that are the next kind of iteration of a chain or something like that on one of our busier corridors. You're really finding those kind of diamonds in the rough to be able to bring forward, to provide resources to, and to elevate. And for that, I'm super grateful.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilwoman Lopez Chavez?
Yeah, thank you for the time, and thank you so much for your work on EDLF. The team significantly has helped District 4 businesses. Just in echoing, again, I think there's great conversations, and what's great about EDLF is that the loan fund is applied citywide. I'd love to have a little bit of a more direction, actually, as I think about some of our grand boulevards or some of the spaces that we're building out, such as in North Temple, some of these mixed-use spaces that could use a little bit more foresight and thought in terms of attracting businesses there. I'd love to try to utilize that. I've seen other cities use their version of an EDLF to try to do that. I think of Midvale City. They incorporated loan funds along with subsidies to fill out their Main Street, and in particular attract new and BIPOC-owned businesses. But in short, I just want to say thank you again. I'm super supportive of this particular loan fund we're here to talk about today, the Frontier Fruit LLC. They're a great organization. I'm really happy that we get to fund them.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much for your presentation. With that, we're going to move on to item number 5, an ordinance for the budget amendment number 2 for fiscal year 24-25 follow-up. Ben Lutke, Council Policy Analyst, will be joining us at the table, as well as Mary Beth Thompson, our Chief Financial Officer, and Greg Cleary, our Budget Director. Ben, I will turn the time over to you. I'm going to do my best to give us a full 30 minutes on this. We're a little behind, but we're going to try for the full 30.
Okay, good to know. Last Tuesday, you held and closed the public hearing. Tonight, you have the option to adopt some or all items in budget amendment number 2. If there are any items that you would like more time to consider, please let staff know so we can remove that item from the motion sheet for the adoption vote tonight. A quick update from last Tuesday. You had asked on item A6, who owns the road underneath the 201 freeway bridge? and the road on either side of the interchange. And you asked about the ownership because $100,000 is being requested to add sidewalks and a protected bike lane. This is where 3200 West goes from Salt Lake City under the bridge into West Valley City. The administration clarified that all three of those entities own part of the public right-of-way in the project area. So the interchange itself is owned by UDOT. I learned in this process that UDOT also has a public property map and inventory, so you can go check what property they own, which is very handy. The Salt Lake City ownership is immediately north of the freeway interchange, and West Valley City's ownership is immediately south. So since the sidewalks and the protected bike lanes would be added through all three of the different entities' ownership, all three would be contributing funding. The administration also confirmed that the project is being designed to be ADA compliant, and the CIP team, in a general context, said that they have heard your prioritization of ADA compliance. They're looking at either adding that as a question for applications in the future and reviewing the existing projects that'll be coming to you next year.
To that information, thank you for following up. That's very important. Now I understand a little better. So let me, maybe I didn't understand the whole answer, so I am following up. Does the portion, is the money that is being requested for our own portion, only for the portion that Salt Lake City owns, or is for more than that?
My understanding is it's roughly proportional. So UDOT is putting money in, West Valley City is putting money in, and then we're putting in the 100,000.
Okay, so everybody is contributing to the greater goal of creating a sidewalk and potentially some bike infrastructure or not. Okay,
That's my understanding.
okay. With that caveat, I'm very supportive of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
There are 6 items left. They're all in section D. We're picking up with item D4. This is a request for $7 million in the CIP fund, and it's a dedicated account for the landfill, which is co-owned by the city and the county. So this funding is needed for the next project at the landfill. You approved an environmental engineer, a city employee that is dedicated to working on projects at the landfill. So the projects are moving faster. That's why this is coming to you in a budget amendment and not the annual budget, is the next major project is moving its construction up faster to be next spring. It's a methane collection well, so it's taking the methane gas that's being emitted by the landfill, capturing it, and then using some of it to generate energy. The project cannot go out to bid until it has the budget approved. That's what this item is before you. The county reimburses the city for the project expenses. So this is the city fronting the funds, and then the county reimburses, so it's budget neutral.
Council, any questions? All right.
Okay, moving on to D5. This is a request for additional funding to the Kensington Neighborhood Byway. This is a byway approximately 15th south that runs east to west through the city. The additional funding is $103,000 from CIP, a canceled project, and $43,000 of transportation impact fees, also from a canceled project. The original byway running east and west was actually going to be a block north of 1300 South, but UDOT, which owns State Street, said, sorry, we can't have a crossing over State Street that close to 1300 South, which is a major signalized intersection and close to the on and off ramps for Interstate 15. So this is moving the neighborhood byway to Kensington, where UDOT has given its approval for improvements over State Street and improvements over 700 East. And they've also expanded the scope of the pedestrian and bicycle improvements that are allowed on their roads. That created this funding gap where this additional $143,000 would fully pay for those improvements.
Council, any questions? Sounds perfect.
This is a major neighborhood byway. The total budget, if you add this additional funding, is over $2.6 million. So this will be a major addition to the urban trail network in the city. That takes us to D7. This is a follow-up item from action you took in budget amendment number 1 related to the city prosecutor's office. So back in budget amendment number 1, you made several changes to implement the move of the city prosecutor's office into new office space. And this was precipitated by the district attorney's office sending notice that the interlocal agreement between the city and the county would be terminated, necessitating the city prosecutor's office to relocate. Since then, discussions have continued, and it's been determined that the interlocal will continue for the foreseeable future. This means the actions you took in budget amendment number 1, most of them are no longer needed and they can be reversed. So those changes include a city prosecutor FTE that you created, as well as costs related to that position, such as equipment. That funding would go back to general fund balance. It's about $280,000. You would also eliminate the city prosecutor FTE since it is no longer needed. There was also funding budgeted to pay for the interlocal agreement expenses. So the office space of city prosecutor staff being inside the district attorney's building, as well as operating expenses and a management fee. All of those are determined by the interlocal agreement. That $473,000 you reappropriated to go to new office space. Since that's no longer needed, this is going to reverse it back to those original expenses under the interlocal agreement with one change. $50,000 of that would stay in the CIP fund, and it's proposed to be used for a study of the spacing needs of the city attorney's office on the 5th floor of this building, and it would also look at the unfinished portions of the 5th floor. So the results of that study could inform a reconfiguration and potentially finishing the remaining parts of the 5th floor. There are 2 FTEs that you approved creating in the budget amendment that are proposed to stay, even though the interlocal agreement is now continuing. That is a senior city attorney and the deputy director of administration within the city attorney's office. Both of those positions would remain. Any questions on this item?
Councilmember Pui.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm excited that we are studying the 5th floor here in the building and seeing if there is an opportunity there to use those scary other rooms that we are now using for office space. So that's wonderful. Now, on the bigger picture about the city attorney and where it lives, and if it needs to be here or in this agreement with the district attorney, and I'm glad that we have found a path forward at the moment. But I would like to see if the temperature of my colleagues about maybe understanding the issue here a little more in depth about costs and policy implications about how this agreement came about and what it is for our city, what it means for our city. When we are in some ways delegating some of this role to the county district attorney to act in that role. So I would like to see if there is appetite in this body to do a legislative intent for a study or a report from the administration on what, in collaboration with our council staff, about the monetary implications, policy implications, about what each route means for our city, if that's okay.
So you're saying since we have extra time that we didn't really plan on in this transaction, giving us kind of a social, financial, political landscape of the possibilities and the strategies would be helpful?
Yeah, what I don't want to be is in a situation where I'm deciding on the fly again. It will be important for us to, I guess, understand where we are and what the options are.
Council, do you all share an appetite for that with Councilmember Pui? I think that at least 4 of us do, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that something you would like on the motion sheet for tonight? It sounds like you'd be voting on this item, so that would be a good time to put it.
Or we just discuss it, I mean, are we gonna have a retreat in January and discuss it?
Either on the
Because that is a
motion
good
sheet
time.
or
That's
legislative
what I'm gonna-
intent or something.
I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
hurt to add it to
Yeah.
the language. I mean, if we're
Yeah.
okay with it, it doesn't seem like it's huge.
We have a lot of trust in our council staff that you're going to help us get this, so whatever you think is best.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to add it to the motion sheet. I've
Okay.
captured the language about the budget, policy, oversight, and other impacts and considerations. If there's nothing else on this item, that takes us to D8. This is a request to reclassify 2 positions in the 911 department. The first reclassification is an executive assistant to be a business systems analyst. This would increase the pay grade from 26 to 28, so it costs more. It would also change the status of the position from appointed to merit. The change is intended to increase the technical capabilities of the staff in the department so that they can also work more closely with IMS. In the annual budget, you approved some new software data analytic tools that they're hoping to better take advantage of with their existing staff. The second change is reclassifying the deputy director to be an assistant director. This would be a decrease in the pay grade from 32 to 31, so it would cost less. The change would also make the position from appointed to merit. There are currently 4 assistant directors in the 911 department. This would increase that total to 5. There would no longer be a deputy director in the 911 department. The assistant directors have been described as operating like division directors. Those are typically appointed positions. These changes require amending the appointed pay plan because you would be removing 2 positions that are appointed and reclassifying them to be merit. One policy question is if you want to discuss with the administration how the 911 department would operate without a deputy director, especially in instances when the director is unavailable, such as at little to no notice. Over the years, there have been similar requests where departments have come to the council proposing to eliminate a department deputy director. The council has approved some of those, but there have been a few instances in my time here where those departments returned asking to restore the deputy director position, and you granted those. This most recently happened with the HR department.
Councilwoman Young?
So if I can just ask, is this impacting open positions, or are there current employees who are going to have a change in their salary?
My understanding is both positions are currently full or filled, that
Okay.
the employees have agreed to these changes.
Okay, that's helpful.
I typically am in favor, I think Lisa does a really great job over at 911. And if she thinks this is necessary, I tend to be in favor of giving her what she wants. But I do think I would like a little bit of a deeper dive into the structure and what it looks like. I don't know that I'm willing to hold the funds up for it, but I wonder how you all feel about that, Councilmember David.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's kind of nice that sometimes you see organizations want to streamline it because you don't want to have one person bossing 2 other people when you could just, I mean, it's too many layers. And I can see removing a layer might be important, but in this case, you know, if there's 5 assistants reporting to the director, is there a status on, if the director's not here, who's the one who is in charge? Because you can't have 5 bosses there. And is there one person who is always in charge? Is there a senior assistant in charge when the deputies or when the director's not there, whether they're on vacation or an emergency? Just can't be there. So that's the whole thing. But I think rightfully so, it'd be nice to understand that structure and how this changes and makes it more streamlined.
I think I have the same
And I bet you
concerns, but
Lisa
I
has
think
that.
Lisa's leadership has earned me. So I don't know that I want to hold up the funds, but I do want to ask after funding what is the structure and make sure that is covered.
I'm not changing it because this budget's neutral also, so I'm not
Yeah.
affecting that.
I support that inquiry, and I would also like to add to the bigger conversation as it was presented last week about the vacancies in the department. And what is the plan and what is the issues and what is going on, because certainly I'm sure it's not great for them. That I'm sure that they're doing a lot of extra hours to keep up, and I think that it may be correlating or there's something there going on that it may need some help from us.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit of a deeper dive in the new year into 911 anyway to find out how we can support them.
And moving forward with this item in the budget amendment.
Yeah, anyone want to hold the budget item up? Okay.
Okay, got it. 2 more items. D9, this is a $4.2 million donation from the University of Utah for capital improvements to Sunnyside Park. There are actually 2 items in the budget amendment related to this. F2 is the city accepting the $4.2 million through the donation fund. D9 is transferring those funds to CIP for the capital improvement projects. The donation is structured where first $1 million would be deposited and the remaining $3.2 million would be deposited once the university has received notice that the city completed the public engagement process. The public engagement process will determine the specific capital improvements that will be done in Sunnyside Park. And Councilmember Dugan has asked that a note be added to the adoption motion sheet for this item. And I'm just going to read a couple sentences directly from the donation agreement. And this is meant to clarify in the public record what the funds can be used for. Per the donation agreement, the city shall deposit the donation, the $4.2 million, into a special donation fund managed by the city's finance department. The city shall use the donation solely for the project and not for deferred maintenance or repairs, except as required to accomplish new, renovated, or upgraded amenities and infrastructure, except that the city may use a portion of the donation to mitigate the loss of the softball fields that are currently in Sunnyside Park to other city parks. Per city requirements, this field mitigation, it's provided that the city first deposits an equal amount into the same account prior to expending any funds for field mitigation, which guarantees that at least $4.2 million will be invested in Sunnyside Park. So this is meant to say $4.2 million at least will be invested in Sunnyside Park for these capital improvements, and it includes a little bit of flexibility if there's another funding source that better aligns with either moving those softball fields. That funding source could be used, but it would have to be an equivalent amount going in to offset the use of those donation funds. So there will be at least $4.2 million. It's just that the funding source possibly could shift in the future, and that would return to you as the council in a budget opening.
Right, and I appreciate that clarification because there's been some confusion here because the word may use portion of it and Sunnyside's not going to get it. And using the term at least $4.2 million, where you go back to D9, right, that says, in D9 it says the donation is $4.2 million. So there's no less and there's no more. It's $4.2 million is a donation. They're not donating more than $4.2 million. And so the wording, using the wording at least, I'm not sure why that's in there, but it's I think it also confuses people, but that's the wording of the agreement. But there's only $4.2 million that's coming to the city, and that's what we're going to use on Sunnyside Park. There's some ability to move the funds around, but in essence, Sunnyside gets $4.2 million.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Council,
Thank you,
anything
appreciate
else? Yes, Sunnyside Park will get a $4.2 million investment. Yes. All right.
The last item, this is really quick. It's a follow-up from the annual budget. There was $2.1 million in non-departmental pending the outcome of wage negotiations for represented employees in the fire department and the police department. Those negotiations wrapped up and they were part of the annual budget. This is just the follow-up step to take those funds from non-departmental and move it over to the police department budget and the fire department budget so that they have all the funds to pay the negotiated wages.
Council, any questions or concerns? All right. Are we done with budget amendment 2?
Those are all the items.
Team, we are finishing all the things today. All right, thank you. All right, we will now move on to an informational update regarding the council and board leadership structural changes. I had to step out during the RDA one. So Councilmember Vice Chair Wharton, would you like to facilitate this one since you were at the last one? I don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Happy to.
Sorry to throw it at you.
That's okay. All right. So here we are on the council side of this discussion. Does anybody want to add anything from what we discussed earlier in the RDA meeting?
May I bring something about? So since it seems like we are somehow punting or giving ourselves a little more time to understand the different pieces of this and trying to understand if the consolidation of leadership is the path or not, and how we're going to do that if we choose to do so. There was a pending matter regarding the leadership stipend in previous discussions, and we put that on pause because of this conversation. So I want to make sure that we are not slowing that down since they were chained for a moment. Since they're not going to be chained anymore, I felt like we need to move on the stipend situation. Since that was the other thing that was next, just to not punt all the things that we discussed through the whole year. So what, I guess is the best path forward?
I think based on your earlier conversation and seeming that there would be 4 leadership positions as is contemplated in the stipend ordinance, staff just asked our agenda team to put that on the formal meeting in the first meeting in January for you guys to act. So that's kind of the current status, and of course we can reevaluate it if you guys end up reevaluating the number of leadership positions.
Can I, since I didn't get to speak at the last one, I actually really believe in this. I think it's naive of us to believe that giving ourselves 6 months will do anything when our legislative session is how we kick off the year, and it literally has been giving us our agendas for the rest of the year. And there's at least one massive issue that I anticipate will consume a disproportionate amount of our bandwidth immediately following, and then we go into budget. So I would like to do something, if we're going to commit to this, that actually gets us to conclusions without just relying on staff doing some research. I would like to suggest that we put together a little subcommittee or task force to hold ourselves accountable and really go deep on this, something that would gather information and really cause us to ask questions. This should not be something that comes from the staff as prescriptive. If we are having problems communicating with each other, if we're having difficulty keeping up with the workflow, if we want to consider different forms, we're the electeds. And I think we should establish something, and I'm not saying we have to decide who it is or what it is, but I do think we should covenant with each other to actually get to conclusions and not just ask our liaison a question and expect an answer within a week and consider it and then make a few phone calls. That is literally the status quo. And we will never get to a place of either deciding this is how to optimize in the current framework or this is how a framework needs to be adjusted to move us forward.
I think the commitment from the RDA discussion is that this is going to happen at the council retreat, and obviously that will be scheduled by the new leadership. But I said that for me, in our leadership discussions that are occurring and then in talking about leadership for next year, that this is going to be top of mind for me. So other council members can weigh in.
And just to keep you updated, I share the same urgency to this discussion. Ultimately, no urgency to change it, but urgency to get to the bottom of it, and to understand the complexity of it and the benefits, and see what we can do it, how we can do something like this. So I'm committed to that as well. So I'm hoping, I'm looking forward to, and Chris challenged us for us to be thinking about this through the holidays. Yes. So as our holiday homework.
I'm not thinking about any of you during the holidays, no offense.
So I think to remind you about the commitment that we have made to Chris is that we have to think about this through the holidays and come back with ideas.
Okay,
It's that most wonderful time of year.
it is.
To
Is
think
there
about
anything
power
else
structure.
we want to add to the conversation or retract from the conversation? I'll offer us that opportunity as well. All right, is there any chance Nate King is online? Glory be, our appointment, who like literally was supposed to be in 25 minutes, is already online. Nate, thank you for logging in early.
Yeah, of course.
This is for your appointment to the Art Design Board. Typically, we give appointees a minute or two just to introduce themselves, why they're interested in service. So if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your time, Council. I'm excited to be here. Yep, I'm Nate King, an architect at Sperano Mooney Architecture, here today for the mandated architect position on the Art Design Board. I've been with Sperano Mooney for 10 years, and over that period, I've had the privilege to work on multiple award-winning design projects. How I believe I can contribute to the Art Design Board. You know, a lot of the work that we do and I've been involved with are art-related projects. Worked recently with Utah Museum of Contemporary Art on a pre-designed master plan project, working closely with director and the chief curator, and in addition to their master plan board. Currently working on an expansion to the Nora Eccles Harrison Museum of Art at Utah State University, in addition to other types of art, Performing Arts Center in St. George that we're currently working on. And a small side note, also Pioneer Park and Glendale Park that have public art related elements that are upcoming that we're pretty excited about. So with my art related experience, I think I'll bring a unique perspective to the Art Design Board in the role of architect. So it's a little bit about me, my background.
Thank
Happy
you
to
so
answer
much,
any
Nate.
questions.
Council, any comments? Councilwoman Lopez Chavez?
Yeah, thank you, Nate, and great to meet you virtually. I think this perspective is going to serve us well, especially in the next decade. But I'm very excited by the projects and the potential for you to help create new iconic art for the next century in the city. So thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you. Very excited.
Nate, we don't take for granted when people offer the service. We know it's a sacrifice of your time and your talent. And so we're really appreciative for the ways that you give back to the community. We will vote to approve you on tonight's consent agenda. You don't have to be present, but with that, you will start your term, and we're so grateful for your willingness to serve.
Well, thank you very much, Council. I appreciate the time.
All right, thank you. Council members, there is a written briefing in your email about campaign finance amendments. Please be sure to take time to review that. Report of the chair and vice chair. Vice chair, anything?
No, thank you.
And neither for me. Announcements from the executive director.
I do have just one. It's travel related. Councilmember Mono is interested in attending the NARO conference in Washington, D.C. That stands for the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials. It's at the same time as the NLC conference in Washington, D.C. that several council members will be attending. He's still planning to join the council for some of the DC congressional meetings, and staff is working just to coordinate those logistics. But because the NARO conference is not one of the standard conferences, we just need the council's approval to register him for that.
Is that a thumbs up? We straw
I
poll?
support.
All right. All right, everyone supports. Bring home good stuff for us.
I'll see you in DC.
Well, tell us about it there and then bring it home, okay? We do not have an additional closed session, correct? No. We are good. Council, this has been possibly the most intense day of my council existence. I'm very glad to be serving alongside people like you who care for the city the way you do. But with that, let's adjourn and take a break before we go into formal session. We will reconvene for formal at 7 p.m. Thank you.